So he tried this emotional blackmail on his dad. He was going to bring Meghan and the kids, Archie and Lilibet, and of course the king would get to see his beloved grandchildren for the first time in 4 years.
They will not receive full police protection, which may have included, by the way, a police motorcade for when they are travelling, and that is Harry's dream.
My understanding is that the king is absolutely resolute that it's nothing to do with him. He's not going to interfere. He's never interfered. He's left it up to Ravik.
Harry wants the whole 9 yards. That when he's in the United Kingdom and he gets into a car, there are motorbikes in front of him, SUVs, tanks, helicopters.
So, the plan appeared to centre on an emotional appeal aimed at King Charles through the idea of a family reunion. The concept seemed simple but powerful. Harry hoped to bring Meghan and the children, Archie and Lilibet, back to Britain after several years away. Such a visit would give the king an opportunity to spend time with his grandchildren again, something many royal watchers believed would be a meaningful family moment. At first, it looked as though the public was being prepared for a positive new chapter, with hopes of reconciliation and renewed family ties growing stronger. But as those expectations built, attention quickly shifted back to the long-running disagreement over Harry's security arrangements during UK visits. His position remained clear. Without the level of protection he believed his family needed, the visit would not move forward.
Yes, I think this was the plan all along. It was to sort of build King Charles up and Britain to the idea that our king is finally going to get to see his grandchildren again, and then to whip that away from the king and the nation by saying, well, you still won't give me that gun guard, police armed protection that I need, that I demand, so you won't give it to me. So nah, I'm not going to bring Meghan and the kids back now. I think that Harry actually thought that if he could set up this meeting between his kids, Archie and Lilibet, and the king, that the security he demanded, or he's been demanding now for a couple of years, would suddenly fall into place. He'd get that automatic armed police protection he's always demanded, and everything would be hunky-dory. But of course, they've turned round, the authorities here, and said, look, that doesn't make any difference. You're not getting an armed guard. Your British taxpayers are not going to pay for police protection for you, mate. You ran away. You're not a front-line royal. You're not getting it.
Many commentators viewed this as an attempt to link the reunion with the unresolved security issue. Some royal commentators believe Harry hoped the emotional significance of reconnecting the king with his grandchildren might encourage fresh discussions about his long-standing request for official police protection. According to this interpretation, the family reunion could have added emotional weight to an issue that has remained unresolved for years. Harry has consistently argued that he believes enhanced security is necessary whenever he travels to the UK with his family. Supporters say his concerns are genuine, while critics argue the matter has already been thoroughly reviewed. Either way, the debate has continued for years, blending personal family relationships with legal and security questions in a way that has kept public attention firmly focused on the story. However, the official position from UK authorities has remained consistent throughout the process. They have repeatedly stated that security arrangements are assessed according to established procedures rather than family relationships or public profile. Since Harry stepped back from his role as a working member of the royal family in 2020, the framework used to evaluate his security changed accordingly. Officials have maintained that decisions are based on current responsibilities, specific circumstances, and professional risk assessments rather than previous royal status alone. From the government's perspective, this has never been presented as a personal dispute.
Hold up, stop the presses. I thought this was all settled, that they weren't going to get their security, and there was this back and forth, and recapping this story and looking at what was said in the press, it looked like he wasn't going to get the security. This is not really new news, okay? You know, we just weren't told that they were bringing Harry and Meghan, or, you know, that Harry was bringing Meghan and the kids. We weren't told that King Charles had offered them a royal residence. We weren't told that, you know, Harry had finally found a way to make this trip happen, considering we just started hearing stories about, oh, Meghan's coming and the kids are coming, okay? Now, let me just tell you how I believe that whole story around the kids and Meghan even coming to the UK happened. Because I don't think that was actually, like, out there. We just heard the news, and still people are saying, oh, they're not going to come, they're not going to come. As I've always said in the beginning, how this worked, because it never made sense that Harry was saying that I can't bring my family to the UK because it's not safe. We know that is a bunch of malarkey. We know that that is a bunch of gobbledygook. That don't make no sense.
Instead, officials have consistently explained that security decisions are made according to existing policies that apply to each individual situation. Working members of the royal family who regularly carry out official public duties receive different security arrangements because of the nature of those responsibilities. Since Harry no longer performs those duties on behalf of the monarchy, the evaluation process is different. That position has remained unchanged despite years of public discussion and legal proceedings. This naturally raises another question that has fueled debate among royal observers. If the government's position has remained largely unchanged throughout the process, why did so much attention focus on the lengthy 40-page report prepared on Harry's behalf? After all, this was not the first time the issue had reached this stage. The disagreement over security had already been argued extensively through legal channels, making many wonder what role this new document was expected to play.
So now Harry is apparently, this is what I wanted to get your take on, this is extraordinary. He's shelled out yet more money on a 40-page risk assessment by a security organisation that he's paid for. And he's now presented this to the government, and it says that the Duke of Sussex, when he comes to host the Invictus Games, could be a serious terrorist target, and that could create a mass casualty event.
In 2023, Prince Harry challenged the earlier decision regarding his UK security arrangements through the British courts. He argued that the changes made to his protection were unfair and should be reconsidered. The court ultimately rejected his challenge, and when he later appealed the decision, the outcome remained the same. Throughout those proceedings, the central message from the tribunal stayed consistent. Security arrangements would continue to be determined on a case-by-case basis, rather than being guaranteed because of previous royal status or earlier protection arrangements. The widely discussed 40-page report also became part of the conversation. Harry's team reportedly commissioned the document as part of their broader efforts surrounding the case. While detailed reports can provide background information and expert opinions, they do not automatically change legal outcomes. The courts ultimately base their decisions on the legal framework and the evidence presented within those proceedings. Some media analysts suggested that documents like this can also influence public discussion outside the courtroom. Rather than focusing solely on legal arguments, they may help explain one side's perspective, generate public interest, or encourage wider debate about complicated issues.
Tried this emotional blackmail on his dad. His father has told him, I do not decide on these matters. I can't help you there. So now Harry is apparently, this is what I wanted to get your take on, this is extraordinary. He's shelled out yet more money on a 40-page risk assessment by a security organisation that he's paid for. And he's now presented this to the government, and it says that the Duke of Sussex, when he comes to host the Invictus Games, could be a serious terrorist target, and that could create a mass casualty event.
Whether that was the intention here remains open to interpretation, but the report certainly became another talking point in an already high-profile story that had attracted significant media coverage. At that stage, the discussion began to move beyond security policies alone and into the way the story unfolded publicly. Instead of appearing like a straightforward family travel plan, the timeline attracted growing attention because of how events seemed to develop. On Friday, reports indicated that the Sussex team had confirmed travel plans with several family members, including the children, expected to be part of the visit. Around the same time, various reports suggested that King Charles was looking forward to the possibility of spending time with his grandchildren, adding another emotional layer to an already closely watched royal story. Only a day later, however, the story appeared to take a very different direction. Reports surfaced suggesting that concerns over the security arrangements had placed the planned visit in doubt. Rather than remaining a private family discussion, the issue quickly became part of the public conversation through media reports, immediately attracting widespread attention. That shift changed the tone of the story. What had initially looked like a straightforward family visit now became another chapter in the ongoing public debate surrounding Harry's security concerns and his relationship with the UK authorities.
This is a private security firm saying that. In other words, if Harry comes, there'll be the possibility of a mass casualty event if he's the subject of a terrorist attack. Well, and he's giving this to the government to say, well, there you go, you've got to give me armed guards. Well, I would say if that's true, don't come. Don't put other people at risk, just don't come. This is getting ridiculous, Kinsey.
Yeah, this is the same report, I believe, that he was putting together when he was threatening the NYPD, his team sending the NYPD emails saying, we're going to get Gavin Newsom involved, the governor of California. We need your assistance here. We need you to back us up. That there was a high-speed car chase throughout the streets of New York after Meghan Markle accepted another trophy, which the mayor at the time, Eric Adams, came out and said, well, that's ludicrous. And NYPD was like, this is not even remotely close to the truth. And so Harry's team was emailing the NYPD, trying to strong-arm them, saying, you know, don't make us get Governor Gavin Newsom involved of the state of California. And the NYPD was like, nice try. This isn't working.
Royal correspondents who have closely followed these developments noted that the sequence of events seemed carefully timed. First came reports building anticipation around a possible family reunion, followed almost immediately by fresh headlines questioning whether the visit would proceed at all. That timing prompted many commentators to wonder who the message was really intended for. Was it aimed at government officials responsible for security decisions, or was it simply another attempt to draw attention to Harry's long-standing concerns? Those questions continue to generate discussion because the public still doesn't have a complete picture of every private conversation that took place behind the scenes. One point that repeatedly emerges in reporting is the constitutional role of King Charles. Although he is head of state, decisions regarding official security arrangements are handled through government processes rather than by the monarch personally. Multiple reports have suggested that the king made this distinction clear, explaining that these matters are not his to decide. If accurate, that highlights the difference between family relationships and the formal responsibilities of the constitutional system. It also illustrates why personal appeals alone cannot automatically change established government procedures. That distinction is important because it reflects how the UK's institutions are designed to operate. Security decisions are generally handled by the appropriate authorities using professional assessments rather than through personal influence or family connections.
Everything that you would expect from a chaotic appearance of Harry and Meghan and their desperation to get maximum attention, maximum coverage. But this time they've got no one else they can blame for the clown circus, which is now surrounding this entire trip, because it was their operational notes that they decided to give to the media on Friday, being security conscious and all, which has left a lot of people with a lot of egg on their faces. In fact, when I was at the ball Saturday night, I met a lovely lady in the toilets in a beautiful red dress, and she said to me, "You're going to have to eat your shoe." I was like, "What? What are you talking about? Why?" And then it's down to me saying, "I'm going to eat my shoe if they bring the kids over." Do you remember me saying that? Well, she did.
Since Harry stepped back from his role as a working royal several years ago, his circumstances have been evaluated under a different framework than those applied to senior working members of the royal family. Officials have consistently maintained that this process is based on current responsibilities and assessed levels of risk rather than past positions. Observers have also pointed to comparisons with other well-known public figures. Celebrities frequently visit or live in the UK without receiving permanent state-funded police protection. In cases where enhanced security has been provided, it has generally followed official assessments based on verified threats and specific circumstances. Those examples are often cited to explain that the system is intended to evaluate each situation individually instead of relying solely on someone's public profile or international recognition. For that reason, some analysts argue that submitting privately commissioned reports or expert assessments does not automatically alter how official decisions are reached. Such documents may contribute information for consideration, but they do not replace the government's own security evaluation process.
He has lost his ever-loving mind. He cannot deal with the no. And he's losing it. He's completely lost it, okay? So Harry is saying that they went back on their word in the 11th hour. They're saying, or Harry is saying, that I just may not even bring my children now to the UK or my wife because you guys changed your mind. You were supposed to give me security. Well, that's not what happened. What happened was Harry was making it sound as if he was going to get the security before it was actually even ruled on, and he wanted to force their hand. He wanted to say, I'm going to put it out there, well, I'm sure to get it, and, you know, it's nailed on. And he was making all these things in the press to intimidate, to bully, to try to connive his way into some security without an official ruling on it.
According to officials, the framework exists to ensure that decisions are made consistently and according to established procedures rather than individual requests. Many commentators therefore argue that the issue is less about whether the system succeeded or failed, and more about the fact that the existing framework did not produce the outcome Harry had hoped for. From that perspective, the disagreement reflects differing expectations rather than evidence that the process itself was operating incorrectly. Supporters of Harry continue to argue that his concerns deserve greater consideration, while others believe the existing procedures should remain consistent regardless of the individual involved. Reports have also suggested that Harry's team viewed the case as having implications beyond a single visit to Britain. According to various media accounts, they hoped a favourable outcome could help establish a broader approach to future security arrangements connected with his public activities. Some reports have even claimed that discussions reached senior government figures during the wider debate, although the extent and impact of those reported conversations have never been fully confirmed publicly. If those reports are accurate, the discussion becomes much broader than one planned appearance in Birmingham. Instead, it becomes part of a larger conversation about how security policies are applied, how exceptions should be considered, and where the line should be drawn between personal circumstances and institutional rules. Those are complicated questions that governments regularly face, particularly when dealing with individuals whose public roles have changed over time. At the center of it all remains the deeply personal element that has captured so much public attention: the possibility of King Charles spending time with his grandchildren after several years apart naturally carries emotional significance. At the same time,
is an epic charity event that the Princess of Wales has done, and the reason why I'm bringing it up is because it's the perfect counter story to show that our future Queen of the Commonwealth realms, the United Kingdom, well, Queen Consort, of course, she has managed to do something when nobody knew what she was up to. She has climbed not one mountain, not two mountains, but 3 mountains, or to raise money for charity. And you know what? She did that in 3 separate countries in 20.
The security dispute has continued to dominate headlines, making it difficult to separate family matters from wider legal and policy debates. Whether viewed primarily as a family disagreement, a legal dispute, or a public relations challenge, the story continues to demonstrate how personal relationships, constitutional responsibilities, and public policy can become closely intertwined in ways that attract intense public interest. This situation has led many commentators to describe the relationship as being under extraordinary strain. Some believe the events reflect careful strategic planning, while others see them as evidence of a family divide that has become increasingly difficult to repair. Whatever the interpretation, the discussion goes far beyond official statements. Beneath the carefully worded announcements and public appearances, many observers sense an ongoing tension that continues to shape every new development. It has become one of the most closely followed aspects of the wider royal story, with each new update sparking fresh debate about what may really be happening behind the scenes. Another major part of the discussion centers on how official security is funded. In the UK, taxpayers contribute toward the protection provided to working members of the royal family while they carry out official public duties. Supporters of this system argue that it exists because those individuals regularly represent the monarchy at public engagements, state occasions, and charitable events. From that perspective, the security arrangements are viewed as part of the wider responsibilities that come with serving in an official royal role. Critics, however, argue that the situation becomes much more complicated when someone is no longer a working member of the royal family and lives abroad. They question whether the same publicly funded arrangements should continue under those circumstances. Supporters of Harry maintain that his security concerns deserve serious consideration regardless of where he lives, while others believe government policy should remain consistent for everyone. That disagreement remains one of the central issues driving public discussion whenever the topic resurfaces. At its core, the debate has become about where the line should be drawn between public responsibility and private circumstances.
24 hours, she went past members of the public, and they were none the wiser, because the difference is Catherine went there with the intention of doing this privately until she was ready to announce to the world what she's doing. Even Princess Diana used to sneak about. She used to sneak about and go see people in various charities, all under the radar. And that's Harry's very own mother, the woman that Meghan quite scarily models herself on. And then we'd find out that Diana had gone to these charities quietly after, sometimes many years later, because it was in a private capacity.
Catherine, the Princess of Wales, completing one of the most amazing feats for a royal who is recovering from cancer in total privacy, because she didn't shout about this Three Peaks mission at all until she had actually achieved it, which is just Catherine all over, isn't it? And so what did Meghan do? Rather than just thinking, I'm going to let the Princess of Wales have this moment, she decided to launch a new product, send out a summer entertainment email.
Some people believe the existing system is fair because it follows established procedures without creating exceptions. Others feel there should be greater flexibility in unusual situations involving former senior royals. Those competing views continue to divide opinion, ensuring that every new development quickly becomes another topic of public conversation. One consequence of the uncertainty was the impact on preparations surrounding the planned Birmingham event. Organisers had reportedly spent months preparing for the occasion, coordinating schedules, training volunteers, organising venues, and working alongside numerous partners to ensure everything would run smoothly. Large-scale international events require careful planning long before guests arrive, with countless people contributing behind the scenes to make everything successful. When reports emerged that the visit might not proceed, those preparations suddenly faced major disruption. Staff members, volunteers, and local organisers reportedly had to adjust plans within a very short period of time. Businesses that had expected increased visitor activity also found themselves dealing with unexpected uncertainty. Regardless of the reasons behind the reported changes, many local participants were left adapting to circumstances that shifted much faster than anyone had anticipated. One striking feature of modern news cycles is how quickly different stories unfold at the same time. As coverage surrounding the reported cancellation spread across newspapers, television, and social media, other unrelated developments were also attracting attention. Meghan's lifestyle business introduced a new product promotion during the same period, while elsewhere, the Princess of Wales highlighted charitable achievements connected with the completion of the National Three Peaks Challenge. The timing created an interesting contrast, even though the events themselves were unrelated. Across the wider royal calendar, official work also continued without interruption. Charitable organizations, royal engagements, and community initiatives moved forward according to schedule. Public updates focused on ongoing projects rather than addressing the latest headlines, reflecting the routine nature of official responsibilities that continue regardless of broader media attention. For many observers, that contrast became another point of discussion. On one side, headlines remained focused on uncertainty surrounding travel plans and security arrangements. On the other, official engagements and charitable work continued as scheduled, with little reference to the wider controversy. Neither approach necessarily tells the full story, but together they illustrate how different priorities can shape public perception during periods of intense media interest. Ultimately, this latest chapter once again highlights how complex the relationship between family matters, public responsibilities, government policy, and media coverage has become. Every new report tends to generate fresh speculation, yet many of the central questions remain unchanged. Until there are significant developments, the conversation will likely continue to revolve around the same issues that have defined this story for years, leaving royal watchers closely following every update as it unfolds. The timing of those public updates quickly became a talking point. They appeared only minutes apart, leading many observers to compare them side by side. Whether that overlap was intentional or simply coincidental, it immediately encouraged discussion across social media and among royal commentators. One update focused on ongoing official duties, while the other became linked to broader headlines surrounding the latest developments. The close timing naturally invited comparisons, even if neither side intended to create them. Many royal analysts have pointed to the different public roles now occupied by members of the family. Working royals continue to carry out official engagements, charitable initiatives, and public appearances as part of their responsibilities. Harry, having stepped back from those duties, now attracts attention for different reasons, with much of the coverage centered on interviews, legal matters, family developments, and public statements. Supporters and critics interpret these differences in very different ways, which is why discussions surrounding the royal family often remain so divided. Some commentators argue that this reflects two completely different approaches to public life. One emphasizes ongoing official work carried out within the monarchy, while the other generates attention through major headlines and high-profile developments outside the institution. Neither perspective is universally accepted, but the contrast has become increasingly noticeable over the past several years, as both stories continue to unfold along separate paths. At the same time, it's important to recognize that there are multiple ways to interpret Harry's position. One view is that his concerns about security are sincere and shaped by his personal experiences. Having spent much of his life under intense public attention, facing constant media scrutiny, and navigating highly public family circumstances, it is understandable why security remains an important issue from his perspective. Those who support this interpretation believe his requests are rooted in genuine concern rather than strategy. Others, however, see the situation differently. They argue that the repeated public focus on security has gradually become part of a broader communications strategy designed to keep attention on the issue and encourage renewed discussion. According to this interpretation, the emotional significance of family relationships inevitably increases public interest, making each new development receive even greater media coverage. This remains an opinion expressed by some commentators rather than an established fact, but it continues to shape much of the ongoing debate. Past events are frequently referenced by those making that argument. Previous reports involving security concerns, including the widely discussed New York incident, generated significant public attention and were later followed by official statements from authorities that differed from some early public claims. Other reports about discussions surrounding security arrangements have also produced conflicting accounts over the years. Individually, none of those episodes necessarily establish a broader conclusion, but together they have contributed to ongoing public debate about how these situations are presented and interpreted. At the same time, supporters of Harry caution against drawing broad conclusions from isolated events. They argue that every situation has its own circumstances and should be evaluated independently rather than being viewed as part of a predetermined pattern. That difference in interpretation explains why opinions remain sharply divided whenever the subject returns to the headlines. Ultimately, many observers believe the wider story is no longer centered solely on security arrangements or travel plans. Instead, it has become a continuing discussion about trust, communication, family relationships, and the challenges of balancing private concerns with public expectations. Those larger issues have remained at the heart of the conversation for years and continue to shape every new headline. Even now, there are several possible outcomes. Harry could still choose to visit Britain with his family in the future, allowing many of today's questions to fade into the background. Equally, the current disagreement could continue unresolved for some time. What remains clear is that the discussion has extended far beyond one planned visit, becoming part of a much larger story that continues to evolve with every new development. As long as those central questions remain unanswered, public interest is unlikely to disappear anytime soon. Looking back, each chapter in this long-running royal story has eventually reached some form of temporary resolution. Sometimes it came through an official statement, sometimes through a private meeting, and other times through a public appearance that suggested tensions had eased, at least for a while. This latest chapter, however, feels noticeably different. Many of the key questions remain unanswered, and there is still no clear indication of how or when this particular dispute will be resolved. With the next Invictus Games drawing closer, attention is only likely to increase as people continue watching for any meaningful developments. The debate surrounding the situation remains deeply divided. Some commentators believe Harry's actions are driven by genuine concerns about security and family, while others interpret recent events as part of a broader public strategy. Both perspectives continue to circulate, and until more information becomes available, much of the discussion will remain based on interpretation rather than confirmed fact. As always, the timeline leaves plenty of room for different conclusions, and every new development adds another piece to an already complex story. The biggest question now is simple. Will Harry ultimately travel to Birmingham, or will this become another visit that never takes place? Only time will provide that answer, but one thing is certain: the conversation surrounding the royal family continues to evolve, and this story is far from over. What do you think will happen next? Do you believe the visit will go ahead, or do you think the current situation will remain unresolved? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We always enjoy reading your perspectives and seeing the different opinions that make these discussions so interesting. If you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to give the video a like, subscribe so you don't miss future updates, and share it with anyone who enjoys following royal news and major developments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.